Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN Kerbeck, and our show today is presenting Pet Psychic Aminah. Next week, we're going to have a new show graphic and also a new name for this show because we have expanded so far past Pet Psychic Aminah just as a pet psychic. She is so much more. She is someone who is passionate about sustainability, coexistence, and other topics related to humanity and saving this planet and this world. I just want to give a shout out to Aminah. She's been with me since the beginning. And for those of you who are thinking to themselves, I can't really make any connections on social media, it's not really working for me, I tell you, my friends, it does work. Aminah and I met on LinkedIn, and who would think that more than 2 years later, we are still here together providing this education. So without further ado, let's bring out Pet Psychic Aminah, and we're going to talk today about what happens when we bring wildlife inside our homes. Aminah, come on out. It's great to see you.
I feel like I'm having a homecoming or something. Well, quinceañera. There you go.
Well, thank you again for being here. As you know, we started off with a Zoom call. Your camera wasn't working, and we ended up being on for, I don't know, a long time. And here we are talking about some of the most important issues in this world.
Thank you. And I feel so blessed when you have a passion, anybody, I don't care if it's an athletic passion, it's an educational passion, your family, you're passionate about, what you want is somewhere to tell everybody, somewhere to pass it on and share that information. And you've given me that with so much positivity and so much support. I can't tell you how what a blessing you have been for the year of giving me this positivity to really just share with people all the knowledge that I've been blessed with.
Well, thank you, Aminah. And I have to say, and I've said this to so many people publicly and also privately, that I'm very well educated when it comes to books with my degrees and my certifications, but there was so much about the world that I really didn't know. And you have opened my eyes in so many ways. So I thank you for that. And I just want you to keep believing. You are delivering expertise and knowledge that is significant to every single human being in this world.
Yeah, if we could just understand even the dictionary version of coexistence. It's a very great popular word right now, but if you could really look at the dictionary, and we'll get that out one day and see what they have to say, but it literally, you need to coexist. If we're all going to get to the finish line, healthy, happy, alive, thriving, and the planet with us, we've got to do it together. We have to. It just can't be one or two of us. It's got to be all of us.
It's definitely a movement, that is for sure. And speaking of movement, you know, I was in our Florida location, and there were a lot of iguanas and lizards, and now that we're
alligators.
Now here in New Jersey, I see a ton of rabbits, and children, mommy, look at the rabbit. Can we take it in the house with us? Can we keep it? And of course, there used to be a time you could go to a pet store and purchase a rabbit. I don't know if you still can or not, but tell us a little bit about when we see something living in the wild and we decide to bring it home. Or, and you talked about this a couple weeks ago, which really left a big impression on me. I saw this yesterday, a seagull that was lying on the side of this bridge that I walk over, and other seagulls were flying over it. And I didn't know if the seagull was actually alive. It looked perfect. But it wasn't moving. And I thought maybe I should pick it up carefully and do something with it. And I remembered what you had said. So once I would pick it up and take it, what am I going to do with it? I'm not an expert in bird repair or anything. So I'm adding a lot of information, but tell us about why the wild needs to stay in the wilds and the tame, the humans need to stay where we are. Tell me more about that, please.
And there's resources. There's tons of resources. Let me first and foremost tell everybody, check with Fish and Wildlife. They're all over the world. They're in the United States. You can Google it, you can call them, or if you're dealing with a domesticated animal or one that should be domesticated, cat, dogs that's running amok, call your local shelter. Humane Society, whatever the shelter's name is. There's a ton of private ones. So first and foremost, there are professionals who will come out and help. If you are in bear country, I promise they are dying to come in and see what you have got for food. And they don't see any problem with it. They're big enough to make it work. But imagine if you decide, oh, I've got to rescue the baby bear, and the mama bear comes out and the baby bear wasn't really injured, and the bear hurts you or scares you. And guess what? Then there's a ruckus in town and that bear ends up getting shot because you didn't know what you're doing. Or the bird dies because you didn't know what you were doing. So call a professional. And you can start with Fish and Wildlife. They are all over the United States. You can call your local shelter for a referral because they are going to only be dealing with cats and dogs. And there are drop places. There was a really big push, and I'm not doing that work anymore, so I don't have current information, but it was called Catch and Release. There were so many pets, cats and dogs specifically, that were just getting dumped on the side of the road, and people were saying, oh, I don't want a cat anymore, just go, they can catch their own food. Yeah, but that means we're decimating the bird population because we've got 900 other cats that were born, but nobody wanted to take care of them, or they didn't bother to get their animals spayed or neutered, and now they've got babies they don't want, so they just let them run amok and they get hit by cars. Or even more tragic, then they just die of starvation, which is pretty horrible to watch. And sadly, I've been on the other end of recovering animals from these things and being hit. Is that they get picked up in droves and are put to sleep. This is a nice way to say they're killed because there's no home for them. So it's so important. It's so important that we learn to coexist, meaning if you are going to not get your animal spayed or neutered, you don't feel that is something either financially you can handle or you don't believe in it, that's fine. Then you need to make actions. Keep your cats indoors. Keep your animals indoors permanently where there's no chance of them breeding. They're still going to go through their cycles if they're not spayed or neutered. So you got to pick your battles here. You got to pick what you were willing to do. There's so many free clinics now. So many, because nobody in the animal world wants it to be about money. If it's because you cannot afford to get them neutered or medicated or whatever, you need to make choices that are best for the animal. Not that you want a cute little kitty and it'll be really good for your child. No, small children and pets are not a good fit. It takes a parent, takes an older person to watch that relationship grow healthy. Not pulling their ears, not pulling their tails, not throwing them, not dropping them on the floor. There's a lot of things that children are just not capable of at that point, but we sure can teach a lot with us showing love, showing that we will take responsibility for spay or neuter. Nowadays, Dr. JACALYN, you can't adopt anything. I know in the state of California and in many states, you can't adopt anything from the shelters. that has not already been spayed or neutered. They will not let them out the door. It's that big of a problem that they came up with the funds. These are nonprofits, 90% of them. Some are funded by their cities, but they really said, okay, people are not going to do this. We're not going to let one cat or dog or lizard or whatever out of here without being spayed or neutered.
I'm glad that you're bringing this to everyone's attention. It's vitally, crucially important. And I want to go back to something else that you had mentioned, because if you are someone who's outdoors, you're someone who likes to walk through nature, you may see certain things. I know that before I left Florida, I actually saw two, I told you about them, turkey ducks. They're half duck, half turkey, and they were actually attacking each other. They were up off the ground attacking one another. And there was another person, myself, out walking, and I thought, oh my gosh, we should get involved and say something. And he's like, no, this is,
this is an internal problem.
So here's my question. My question is, there's Darwin's theory of evolution, right? Yet to coexist, to truly coexist, how do we not get involved? Or is coexistence and the survival of it mean that that is something we have to accept? That if the two turkey ducks, one of them kills the other, then that's just the way that it goes in the animal kingdom.
Yeah, because it's natural selection. Natural selection is what they breathe and live. We can't do that. It's illegal. I don't care if you don't like your neighbor and they were weaker and you have the bigger gun. That's not illegal. But in the natural world, the animals that continue to procreate should be the healthiest, should be the strongest, should be the one without infections or 3 legs if they're supposed to have 4. And these conflicts that we see from any animals, dog on dog, cat on cat, bird on bird, peacock on peacock, those are pretty gruesome if you've never seen one. Snakes on snakes, snake's tail taking out rats. They're eating. Now, the rat part is they're eating them. Not all fights are about eating. It's about killing the other one, because they want the right to breed. They want the right to have access to all the food in their area, not everywhere. And all of this comes down to the healthy one survives. The healthy one that doesn't have a brain aneurysm or doesn't have a broken toe or doesn't have half of his feathers gone. And what that does in nature is the strongest survive. The weak ones, the ones that are sick, ill, or have deformities, are naturally called out. That's how the world runs. That's not how humanity runs. So we have every single type of person. We have people in wheelchairs. We have people with allergies. We have people with amputated limbs. We have it all. What we don't see is, of course, I'm not advocating that people knock people off because they're better. Not at all. We're a whole different conversation. You have to understand, when you get involved with nature, most of the time we make the wrong choice because we don't know the rules of the game. We don't know the output. We don't know what we don't know. That we're going to, right now, our way of living, humanity, we have put out so much silt from coal factories and from overusing water. We're putting dams up where it trashes the entire ecosystem upstream where the dam was put. I can give you hundreds of studies. That I wrote a paper about this in college when I was studying animal science, and talking about these dams that went up 50 years ago. And now they're looking at it and going, oh my gosh, everything from below where the dam was put is dead. And they're just replanting these last 10, 15 years. They've been replanting. They have actually removed some of the dams because they were trying to, the people wanted to build a town at the bottom of it. Well, guess what, humans? It's not all about you. You might want to live. You might want the water. And they found out by blocking these lakes and rivers, the people who live below the dam starved. and struggled. There was no animals to kill because the animals went where the water was. There was no vegetation because the water was stopped. A lot of the changes are already in process. We're learning that we can power our generators through water, but it's got to flow, but it's got to move. So dams are another existence of, unless a beaver put it in, don't do it. Literally, I mean that literally. I know it sounds funny, but a beaver we actually can look back at science and at engineers who have gone to captive beavers that have a habitat where they can build things, because that's what beavers do. And these people have actually gone there to study how to build a dam correctly and still have the wildlife and still have the plants and they have the spillover. They have the water coming over on the high rain days, but there's now much more of a conversation because animal science people finally said, hey, dummy, did you look at the expert first? A beaver is expert of what he does. And you think all those holes that the ground squirrels are digging up and everything, and everybody's fallen in a hole because the ground squirrel dug one? They found that in a rainy season, those holes filled up. Of course, they've got other homes to go to. They're not trapped. They've got ins and out. And guess what? The soil gets more water because it goes in. The plants get more consistent water because it doesn't just race by. But these animals who build like beavers and other animals in trees and places, they are the king and queen of coexisting and using your resources appropriately. Not, hey, that's mine. It's mine. We have too many of those people. I did it. I created it. It's mine. You know, how many dams are we got named after somebody in the 70s, 80s?
Right.
It's like, are you kidding? That's the Allen Dam, and that's the Gary's Dam. It's like, oh, give me a break. But if you look back, I was really fortunate to be in college when they started tearing the dams down. So, we were all animal science majors, and it was wonderful to hear. But us who are living and breathing these animals and their choices, we all said, told you so. Really loud. They got told a lot by the environmentalists that this was going to happen. And it did so much damage to everybody who was beyond the dam. Where the dam was, the towns changed, they flooded. A lot of people lost their homes. Good rain came in. Again, they were flooded. And they've had to rework this. This has been going on for at least 15 or 20 years that the dams have been completely rethought. That's a start.
It's definitely a start. Yes. Thank you so much. Such great information. I want to go back to what you were sharing just a few minutes ago about natural selection. And what I'm thinking about is I've been reading quite frequently about whales or dolphins that are washed up on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And for people out there thinking, oh, well, that's natural selection. How do we know the difference between when it's human interference, pollution, or whatever the case may be that's disrupting a species versus its natural selection? So when you see that whale or the dolphin on the beach, how do we know? I guess they can perform an autopsy, I guess.
Yeah, it would be a necropsy with animals. It's
Okay.
the correct term is a necropsy, and it is the same as an autopsy. Those are for people. And of course, they do that. We have wonderful scientists doing that work. They'll come out, they'll take samples, and that was the quintessential proof. The scientists kept saying, hey, people in politics, don't do that. Hey, don't dig up that. Don't get rid of that whatever what they're talking about. And when the whales are dying and up on our beach, which is not as common, and dolphins and all that, usually they're out to ocean and they're going to die there and be consumed there and help the ocean survive. But when we're lucky enough to see one, they do the testing. And that's where they saw how much the ocean is poison, is literally poison because of our speedboats with gas leaking and our power engines and people throwing things over the side. Well, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a really, really big deal. These animals are so toxic now that there's a ton of caution when you go and buy fish. Tons of cautions out about how healthy is this fish actually, because the mercury in the last few years, and I mean 10 or 15 the last few years, has been off the chart with fish specifically. So unless they do the test, humanity, they'll see that poor whale and everybody go, oh, yeah, it's annoying. Somebody come and take care of it because I don't want to see it on my beach. I want a nice clean beach. I've heard it all. And I'm sure you could imagine, we've heard all the complaints that it's not my fault, it's somebody else's fault. I'm not here to point fingers at fault. We are talking about is you can't do anything unless you know the information of why and how we got here. We got here because we kept throwing trash in our oceans and lakes and streams. And it was me, myself, and I. We have got to be a community of us. Us. All of us matter. All of us should get to the finish line, whatever that finish line is, together. But we have more illness and more tragedy and more cancer than ever before because we are still not making changes. If you're going to eat a fish and you don't want it to be full cancer causing material, stop polluting the water. It really is that simple. But you got to start with you. Whatever you decide is, I get chewed out all the time because I go around and pick up trash. If I'm walking around and I see it, yes, I wash my hands a lot, but I'm the one who's going to pick up somebody's gum wrapper that threw it down, or, trash here because I can. I don't need any other motive, but I would like to know that bird who is looking for nesting material and sees a little string coming off of something that dropped on the ground, and it could actually be toxic to their babies and they don't know it. We have seen nests put together with trash. It's just amazing to see these studies. Yes, I do read a lot of these studies because it's hilarious and sad at the same time, because we've seen these birds put things together with fabric and material and threads and all kinds of things that get out of the trash. I'm not advocating that. It's just nature is adapting to what we have caused. I don't think that's the way this should have gone.
So true, so spot on. And I think for anyone who finds an animal, whether they're washed up on a beach or you encounter them in the course of your daily routine, what I'm hearing from you, Aminah, is to just leave them alone and nature will take its course, so to speak.
That would be your first choice. If this is possibly a dog, a cat, or something that is possibly domesticated, and or it is a substantial piece of wildlife, anything from a fox, a squirrel, an elephant, if you had those running around, a dolphin that's been beached, sometimes you can push them back and they just got too close to when the tide went out and they weren't able to get back. So what I really, really want you to hear is, yes, I want you to help when you can, but if you haven't done the studies and you haven't done the things that so many of us who are in rescue and worked in rescue for so long, is call the authorities. You can start with the police department if you don't know, the number. And let's say you've got an animal, a dolphin that comes up and is beached. You need to go out and get a bucket and keep getting water on them. Keep getting water and dig the sand out until the rescues can come. So you call your police department and say, hey, I need help. I need Fish and Wildlife here. I need this, but I don't know their phone number. Could you please get me in contact? I'm sitting here with a dolphin and it's alive. These are the people. So go to your emergency and entities and the people who are doing this work or can connect you to the people who are doing the work. If you are lucky enough to be around a sanctuary, a wildlife sanctuary and or a zoo, call them and say, this is what I've got. Do you have a team that does this? So many zoos now have teams for the area that they live in to help save wildlife. But you can, if that's where you reach out first. Reach out to where you think the professionals are being. Call the operator and say, hey, I need a wildlife rescue place within the next 20 miles. Do you know anybody? Our phones still do that. I haven't tried 411 in a long time, but it's we used to dial, right?
You know, it's so funny that you just said that. I heard on the radio the other day, they were saying to people from the younger generations, you probably don't know this, but we used to be able to call and get time or weather. We would call a number and it popped into my head, TI 61212.
Oh my
and I
God.
think the weather was WE 71212. I'm not really
I
sure, but
know that.
now we just look at our phone and it's right there. So I want to change the scenario a little bit. What if you're an outdoor person and you love camping? You spend a lot of time and maybe in a recreational vehicle, maybe you're on campsites. And so you're kind of sharing the space. It's different than you live in a community and then an animal comes in. So now you're sharing the space with these animals and you encounter a deer, for example, and the deer has been wounded, or maybe a hunter shot it and left it there and it's still, do you now get involved?
Again, if you are not trained to do this, which 99.9% of the population is not, call a professional. Start with 911 if you have an animal with a broken leg, a bullet shot, or is somehow literally struggling to breathe, and you are on an emergency, you don't have time for Google the internet, and call 911 and say, hey, I've got a downed deer, it looks like she's been shot, or a buck, or whatever. These people are supposed to, there's no guarantee, every police department is different, but I want to really truly believe that they will still have a resource, because that's their job. If somebody, let's say they come across a homeless person and they're really struggling, I can't imagine they don't have a whole list of shelters and places they can get food and clothing and be a support. And if that's my pipe dream, there you go. But for the people who are capable of asking for help, which is you and I, and anybody else who's cognitively capable and physically capable of calling, even the operator, I assume they still have those. I haven't called one in a long time. And just say, hey, I've got an injured cat, dog, whatever, and they will put you in line to the right number for the first place. Because I know when I'm doing that, now I'm trained as a first responder, so I have to keep my emotions in check. That is the training 101 for us. You've got to keep your emotions in check and do the best you can. But I find being active towards a solution to help is vital to me feeling like I'm doing something and not just standing around, weeping or saying, oh my God, what did I do? I hit a deer, blah, blah, blah. Call somebody, call the police department, who will call animal regulation, who will call, and then you'll get the right people out there. Start somewhere. Don't feel like you're alone, because you might think, let me give you an example. I've seen people try to give milk because they thought the animal was hungry and, I should feed him something. Not every animal drinks milk. Not every animal has even access to a cow to try the milk. So you have to know, am I going to kill this animal with the milk or whatever? Start with water. Start with water. Water is really, really great. When you're in stress, what did they tell us in the gym? What did they tell us when I was training? You have a car accident or something like that, and you have 2 seconds, drink some water. It really settles the body, and it gives it some kind of, not nutrition specifically, but it's great on coping skills. It really helps you keep your cool while you're going through a really, really high energy 911 situation, possibly. An animal is the same way. If you can get them to sip, drink, get their heart rate down, all of that type of stuff, dribble some, you can get a washcloth and just squeeze it and dribble it down their little throat if they can't swallow or they're too scared, and be as calm as you can.
I think the biggest takeaway I have from what you just said is that it doesn't matter what the scenario is. If you don't have the experience, your call to action is to find someone who does have the experience.
Exactly. First and foremost, you're going to find, and luckily we all carry phones now. We all carry phones. So calling 911 should be easy, and calling the operator, I don't know if that still works, or somehow reaching out and saying, hey, I'm going to call my mom, my sister, my brother. I know they're home, and they can call someone, and I can keep doing this, and they'll come out and bring water or something. Water, I think, and Dr. JACALYN, I'd love your input on this. I really think is undervalued. I don't think people in the gym, people going on a walk, power walk or a long walk or a short walk, or are having medical issues, heart palpitations, to panic attacks, to whatever. I think people don't realize how valuable that one thing can literally save your life. It's the same with animals. Water.
Water is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yep. And we can't live without it. Nothing on the planet, nothing can survive without water.
And
so think about that in an emergency.
Exactly. And then also think about how many people are dehydrated.
And are hospitalized.
People, they get headaches, they're shaking, they don't know what it is. And meanwhile, they're not drinking any water. And I've heard people say, because we've had some experts on here about this subject as well, people say, I'm just drinking soda and that's a liquid. No, I haven't had soda in decades.
No, it's just strips. And what they don't know, it strips out the water out. Soda does. Because it's a sugar and carbonation and whatever else, color number 12 or whatever it is, depending on your root beer or something.
Red number 3.
No. Exactly. So basically, you're feeding the Coke or whatever Twinkie you just had. I'm talking about water, clear water. And now I grew up in a place in Southern California in the high desert, and we were famous for our water. People would come in and say, oh, it doesn't taste bad. Because like 30 miles away in some of the bigger cities, the water tastes really funny. I'd go to Los Angeles and visit my cousins, and I was like, well, I don't really want to drink your water. It doesn't taste good. And it was something about the way the desert was put together, and that was where our resources were, a hidden lake underneath the ground. It's called the Mojave Desert, and there's running water. I don't know how many feet anymore. I don't remember that anymore. Is down in the desert that deep, and animals can feel it. They can sense it. They'll dig it up. And we were taught that for, when I was doing hiking rescues, we talked about that, how you dig a hole and you can find water in the desert, but it's so hidden and so protected from all the pollutants and the trash and the commerce going above it. We had great water. I can remember how many times we had guests all the time, and they always like, wow, your water's amazing. It's like, yeah, because it never sees the pollution. I don't know if it's still that way, but it was wonderful. So remember, everybody, water is your best savior. If you can't do anything at all for somebody who's run, especially if they're overheated, let them sit down. Do not do cold compresses on their head or forehead or neck yet. Get some tap water, not cold water. Tap water. Everybody taking notes? Tap water. And Dr. JACALYN, do you know why I'm being so specific about tap water?
Is it because it's unfiltered?
No.
Is it because it's room temperature?
Yep.
Okay.
And why
Ta-da.
is it essential that you only, if you're in trouble and you can see somebody's hyperventilating, fainting, or going to, or already did and coming back, and you're going to drip a little bit of water in their mouth until they can, handle it themselves, because we don't want them choking. And I'm stressing, this is not cold water. This is not hot water. This is tepid right out of the faucet with, or the ground, or your jug. Any idea?
I think because when the water is too cold or too hot, it can cause you to go into shock.
It can, but it also traumatizes a body who's already in trauma. When you go through, let's say, God forbid, you've seen a murder, or you saw a car accident and you're hyperventilating, and your energy and your body is just in full flight. We have a natural ability to run when there's danger. That is a natural reaction. So if you are in any of these high energy, scared, all of these negative feelings, the last thing you need is ice water. It's something more for your body to process. And you can create choking in some people. You can create hyperventilation in some people. It just regular, good old, everyday tap water or bottled water that's at room temperature. You don't want the body to have anything else to do but take in that really good moisture, take in that water. It will feed the anxiety to get everything to calm down. You're going to be calm, you're going to be quiet, and you're going to say, here, take a little bit of water. Take a little bit of water. And do that every 3 to 4 minutes in the beginning, 5 minutes apart. And you'd be surprised how somebody can really bounce back from a trauma, an accident, stress, just by drinking a little bit of water on a consistent basis as their energy comes out, as that shock of whatever's happened comes down. It's amazing. Just plain old tap water.
Tap, tap, tap. And there's something called tapping that people do also.
Yes, yeah.
So
That's another skill. Going to the but
tap
I really
water
want
and
it to be
tapping.
so simple. I think we overlook that we have to buy that $1 billion first aid kit, and I'm all for first aid. I got all of those trainings. I didn't go do that for nothing. So I want that everybody to know. It just doesn't. If you don't have that education, start with sips of water for the person who's in crisis, and if it's you, just be gentle. Get a little water, sip it as you feel. But it's going to get that body getting in tune with you and saying, oh, we don't need to run, because we already ran through that flight or fight. We've all heard this, flight or fight. I now want you to tell the body, no, we're going to calm down. And that's really important. You'll see it with first responders after a car accident where somebody, doesn't necessarily have any severe injuries and they're talking to them. A lot of times they will give them room temperature water, a little bit. Let me be really detailed. You're not guzzling water. That you're asking the body to do too much at that point. So it's really simple. You can do this for your pets. You can do this for your pets and drip a little bit. Like some people will put it on a fabric, like a washcloth. Not many people have that. You can use your shirt. And then they just drip it in. And that's great because it gets that body going, oh, we're going to cool down. We're going to cool down. We're going to cool down. Heat stroke is a really, really big deal. I know. Living in the desert all my life as a kid, you really have to have skills. You really do. I'm not going to even talk about Death Valley, which I've been there plenty, but it's like, yeah, you need to have a lot of water. If you're going to go hiking, be aware of what you need to have with you.
Once again, so many amazing points. If we had captured them all in an encyclopedia that we could actually distribute to people, it would be amazing. But otherwise, they're just going to have to keep tuning in and coming back as we have more and more and more topics. And I'm going to leave it to you for your words of encouragement. Any any things you want to close out the show as we here in the United States come to our Friday nights and the beginning of a weekend? Some people are already into their weekend. What do you want to share with our global audience?
I would like you all to really give yourself some love and grace. It is not the selfish me, myself, and I. That is going to get you anywhere compared to love and grace. And say, you know what, today I need to take an off day from my friends, my family, and just do me. Sit out and read a good book, go for a swim, go talk to the dogs and cats, whatever your healing space is. Don't let anybody dictate or suggest that you should do it this way. They might have great suggestions, but it might not be what fits for you. So I know I'm talking to somebody specifically, and there's a few of you out there that I really want to encourage you to trust you. It's not wrong. You just need to ask the right questions to get the proper answers that work for you at the time. And I hope all of these tips on how to stay hydrated also will keep you calm, will keep you safe in the sun. It'll keep you safe in a crisis. Water is a miracle thing. It just feeds the nerves, feeds the body in another way than getting a good old hug and saying, we're going to get through this. It will give your body a chance to recover from accidents and crisis and arguments. Drinking plenty of water. So love yourself and realize this is part of life and you can do this. We got your back.
Let's take a few minutes and just soak it all in.
Absolutely.
All right. Whew, I feel good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Pet Psychic Aminah, we will be back next week, as I mentioned, with new backgrounds, with an updated graphic and a new show name to really encompass what it is that you are delivering here. So thank you for everything that you're doing. And I wish you an absolutely beautiful weekend.
Absolutely. You also.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching. Please go over to our YouTube channel and subscribe, USA Global TV and Radio. Thanks for now. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.